up, everybody? Welcome back to another well-anticipated episode of a different podcast. First and foremost, we don't have Lou with us, my former co-host. He opted out, and he's on to other things, so we wish him luck. But let's get right to it. With me is Kris Bubic, a starting pitcher for the Kansas City Royals, and we'd just like to welcome you on, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So originally we had a date set up to do this podcast, and I get a message the day before we're supposed to do it from Kris, and he says, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to do the podcast tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to be starting for the Royals the next day." So obviously that took precedent over this, but walk me through that whole process and what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was definitely insane. Something like that, the days kind of speed up on you and everything's moving super fast. But so the whole situation with how the baseball season went down, there was the regular season for the big league guys, which is 60 games, and then there was an alternate site scenario with the remaining 30. I think it was like a 60-player pool, so the remaining 30 or so were at this location kind of close to, we were right outside of Kansas City, on the other side of Kansas City, actually, in Kansas. So I was there for the first couple of weeks, and then it was raining one of the days I was supposed to throw. It was a Wednesday, and one of our pitching coordinators called me in and said, "It's raining today, it's raining tomorrow, so we'll have you slated for Friday, but it's going to be Friday at Kauffman Stadium, getting ready to face the White Sox." And it took me a second to kind of realize what he had said, because I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I knew there was an outside chance of me getting a shot this year, but to be honest, something that early really wasn't in my mind. I was just looking to work innings in, and maybe down the road there would be an opportunity if some guys got hurt. It's such a weird year. Guys testing positive for the virus, guys getting hurt. So you never know what could happen. But when that happened, like I said, it took me a second, and then I was like, damn, this is real. And then I called a couple of family members and called the people I needed to call. So it was just like that. I was going to pitch in the big leagues 2 days later, and then that whole process. I mean, Wednesday, Thursday, just prepping for the start, nothing out of the ordinary. And then Friday was the big day, and it was okay, the results wise, but obviously a little nerves kick in, and just actually facing the White Sox too. We're pretty talented lineup, pretty talented team overall. But just a crazy experience, but I'm grateful I had it.
Yeah, I mean, did you get any sleep the night before? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, it is tough. A lot of times, just in general, before I pitch, a lot of my anxiety comes trying to go to sleep the night before. It's not necessarily right before the game, but yeah, a night like that, it's tough to fall asleep. I try to go to sleep early, and then you're just laying in bed for however long you're laying in bed for, and it's like, damn, I got to get to sleep. I got to get some rest, and you kind of psych yourself out a little bit. But the adrenaline obviously will kick in the next day, and you kind of just forget about the sleep aspect the night before. But definitely hard to go to sleep the night before.
Mm-hmm. So you went on to make what is it, 8 starts? 7? 10 starts. Sorry, yeah. I gypped you there.
You're good.
No, yeah, 10 starts. So you hung out for a little while, which I think is great. And moving forward, obviously now you're training, you're have a little bit of time off, working into a training schedule, COVID, the whole deal. What was the COVID thing like during the season? Obviously there were some major breakouts within teams and games getting delayed and canceled and having to be made up and stuff like that. So was it business as usual once you guys kind of understood the routine with that stuff, or was it kind of hit or miss all year?
It took a little bit to adapt at first. We actually every other day, but it wasn't as bad as it sounds. It was the saliva, the spit sampling test. So all you do is go in and you spit in a tube and you basically twist the solution on or whatever it is and turn it in. So it's pretty simple. But we were doing that every other day, just to stay on top of protocol and whatnot. We did a screen, like a symptom screening every day in the morning before we came to the park to make sure we didn't have any symptoms or anything like that. So that was definitely a small adjustment at first. But over time, let's say after maybe a week or two, you kind of got the hang of it and it didn't really like get in the way of anything. It didn't really mess up the routines of too much. I'd say the biggest difference for me kind of going through it was the games I didn't pitch, which is kind of weird because the day you are pitching, it's pretty normal. You're doing your stuff, you're getting ready for the game. Kind of people leave you alone or talk to you if they want to talk to you or whatever. But the days you don't pitch, technically pitchers aren't really supposed to be allowed in the dugout. You kind of had to watch the game from either the clubhouse down below, or you could go sit in the stands, kind of by yourself or with a couple other pitchers. So that aspect was a little different because as a player, you're not used to sitting in the stands and watching your own team play. Like you're basically taking the perspective of a fan. So it's a little different. But overall, as we went along, the travel wasn't too bad because it was centralized to our region in the Midwest and up and down, kind of north and south. I think the furthest we went was Minnesota, Milwaukee, and then Kansas City is like the furthest south in the central. So the travel wasn't too bad because the flights were an hour or so. But the part about not pitching, that's definitely the biggest difference that I noticed. But once again, adjustment at first, but you kind of got used to it as you went along.
It's like a throwback to the college days when you guys got a scrimmage and you have to chart from behind home plate.
Yeah, it was kind of a similar vibe because you just kind of go off and disperse kind of in the stands. Like you were free to do whatever you wanted except be in the dugout. So it was a little odd, but it is what it is.
Yeah, don't get too used to that. You have to rein you guys back in once you guys get fans again.
I know. We gotta get back and be good teammates in the dugout. Can't just be chilling in the stands all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But you're a Stanford man, coming out of Stanford. So you played 3 years with Stanford. What was that like, and how was the transition from the Pac-12, which obviously carries a lot of talent, and you see a lot of talent coming out in the draft every year out of the Pac-12? How was that transition moving into the minor leagues? And then as it kind of went, did you see a major shift once you got to, they say rookie ball is pretty similar, rookie and A ball, but you tell me.
Yeah, so my time at Stanford was amazing. I definitely grew up a lot going to college, both physically and mentally. When I first got there, I kind of thought, like coming out of high school, I had some success in high school, and I thought like, okay, I'm pretty good. And then you get to college and you kind of get slapped in the face a little bit because you're back to the bottom of the totem pole and got to work your way, earn your stripes a little bit. So that was a good wake up call for me freshman year. And then going through, I was kind of thrown in the fire right away my freshman year. My first ever start was on the road at Texas. So a good team, really good program, obviously, and there were like 7,000 or 8,000 people there. So definitely different type of atmosphere than you get at a typical high school game or an inter squad game in the fall. So just some outings went well, some outings didn't. And I learned from those. And then sophomore and junior year, I was a full-time starter because freshman year I was kind of bouncing back and forth between a starting spot and in the bullpen a little bit, being the lefty out of the pen. And then sophomore and junior year was a little more, I was solidified as a starter. So got a better routine, kind of understood what I needed to prepare for each week. And then the transition between college and pro ball was interesting because, yeah, like you said, rookie ball and A ball are I'd say pretty comparable. Same kind of thing though. When I first got to make my professional debut in rookie ball, I went to Idaho Falls, which is in the Pioneer League, and I was like, it's still kind of the nerves hit in. So like took me a little bit to settle in there too, just to understand the daily schedule because you're playing every day. I was on a pitch count at the time, so it wasn't like a true 5-man or 5-day rotation. But I kind of got the feel for it, and as I went along, kind of understood, like I said, what I needed to do, how the hitters reacted to stuff, and whatnot. And then this past year, or not this past year, but 2019, I was started in low A, was there for about a month and a half, and then got moved up to high A, which was in low A was in Lexington, Kentucky, and then high A in Wilmington, Delaware. And it was a good year overall, and I gained a better understanding of what I do well as a pitcher. And what I think the difference was, I mean, from a pitching standpoint, was me getting a consistent curveball because um, all throughout college and rookie ball, I was just a fastball changeup guy, really. And to survive as a starter, I needed something else, a decent breaking pitch to kind of throw a wrinkle in there every once in a while. So that really developed in 2019, and was able to navigate through lineups pretty well. Maybe get away with some stuff here and there that obviously I didn't get away with this year at the big league level. This is a little different, but the transition overall is, I'd say it's pretty similar to the high school to college transition. Like you think you're pretty good coming in, and then maybe you get hit around a little bit or something doesn't go your way, and you just kind of have to adapt a little bit and adjust on the fly. And then I think that's the best way to do it, and that's kind of from my experience, that's the way I did it. And so far, I can't complain about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made a pit stop at the Futures game. I got to see you throw out in Cleveland. Was that was in 2019, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last year.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, so I got the opportunity to watch you play, and I mean, most people aren't going to know this, but I was happy to play with you as opposed to against you. I didn't have that opportunity, but I did have the opportunity to play with you, and so as a hitter, that's probably fine with me. But anyways, the Futures game, what was that like? You guys, I mean, it's a modified all-star game, essentially. They bring you guys up and put you all together from any level, from my understanding, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So it's just a bunch of guys.
Yeah, the whole experience was, I mean, another kind of experience that goes really fast when you're in it. Kind of spanned over, for me, for 3 days or so, because we were in the middle of the season. Obviously, I was in high A at the time, and I think a week before, I got a call from someone in our front office saying, because I wasn't on the original roster for the Futures game because one of the other pitchers that was on the roster was getting called up that week, so they needed a replacement lefty, and I guess I was the next guy up. And I wouldn't say it was similar to a call like a big league call up, but pretty cool to get a call like that saying, "Hey, you're going to the Futures game next week." So I was like, "Heck yeah, here we go!" Because obviously I knew what it was, and
Right.
another thing, like I didn't even my mind wasn't even on that at all. And then, not that it kind of came out of nowhere, but an experience that, not that I didn't think I was worthy enough to be there. Just for me, it wasn't on the radar at all. I was just trying to focus on making my starts every 5-6 days and pitching as well as I can to try to bump up another level. But then I got the call for the Futures game, and then a week later, I was off to Cleveland. We were on the road in Potomac, which is kind of right outside of DC. So a quick flight to Cleveland on I think we got there on Saturday, and it was just kind of an intro day. You just kind of chill at the hotel, do some stuff. We had like a play ball USA like baseball play ball thing in the little all-star game area. And then Sunday was obviously the big day when you kind of wake up early. You're kind of at the field pretty early, like 11 or noon. And they actually put the celebrity softball game before our game instead of after. I guess usually it's after, and then they play it on TV, recorded the next day. So they actually put it before, and the stadium was absolutely packed. It was like 45,000 people, and then our game was literally 30 minutes after. So we could go in the dugout, watch the softball game a little bit just to kind of see who was there, kind of a who's who of celebrities, and then you go back in, try to get ready. I was going to be in the bullpen for the American League side, and they condensed it to a 7-inning game this year instead of a 9-inning game. Not sure why, but we had 10 pitchers and 7 innings, so you could do the math. I was one of the 3 left over, being a late ad, so I was probably the mop-up guy or the cleanup guy for an inning or so. And then I went out there. We didn't really have much time to warm up before the game because they were clearing the field, and you got to do all the introduction stuff. And then once the anthem's over, you go to the bullpen, and you're just the bullpen in Cleveland's in the outfield. So you're kind of just sitting there, and I didn't know if I was going to pitch, when I was going to pitch. So I'm just kind of sitting there. Being a starter, I'm trying to move around, like stay ready as much as I can. Because if I'm like stagnant for too long, I'm going to get cold and whatnot. You know how it is.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think it was the 4th inning. One of the guys in there, pitch count was getting up, and then they called down and said, "Hey, Bubic, get hot." And then I had about maybe 6 to 8 pitches to get hot. And like I said, being a starter, I'm used to taking my time. You know,
Right.
30 pitch bullpen before the game, and then you walk in. Well, I got 6 to 8 pitches to get ready. I just figured just get it going as quick as possible. I could try to worry about commanding the ball once I get out there, and then next thing you know, I'm walking down the steps, running on the field, and coming into a bases loaded jam. It's even crazier. But first guy was Dylan Carlson, who's with the Cardinals this year. He roped a single off me. The next guy was Dalton Varsho, struck him out. And then the next guy, this was the play that I guess went semi-viral, but I was facing Gavin Lux, and I threw a first pitch ball, and then the next pitch, the bases were still loaded, and I came set. My back's obviously turned to third base, and I think it was Trammell, the guy at third base, took off while I was set, trying to steal home. So I just heard kind of the volume in the stadium go up a little bit. You kind of blank out when you're in that situation. But I literally I stepped off and just fired the ball to home. And I made a pretty good throw, surprisingly. Because in that usually pitchers freak out and throw the ball wherever. But I made a pretty good throw, and the throw beat him, and the umpire called him out. Obviously, there's no replay in the Futures game. But if you were to watch the slow-mo replay, his hand might have gotten in there, but he was out on the field. So, and that was the end of the inning because I came in with 1 out. So the strikeout and then that were my 2 outs. And then I only threw like 7 pitches. So it went by super, super fast. And then I was walking in the dugout, and that was it. But overall, a great weekend just to spend with you're talking about the best players in the game, or in the minor leagues at least, and guys who are either been called up or getting called up or going to be called up and be stars in the league. So just getting to get a taste of that was really special.
Absolutely. And I think I just want to hit on a point that you mentioned earlier, you talking about how you hadn't really been expecting the Futures call or not necessarily the big league call either this year, being as early as it was and all that good stuff. And I just think that it's so important, and it speaks to what you do and how you're going about your business on a daily basis, because if you're so focused on the process and just doing what you need to do every single day, and obviously you're getting the most out of that and most out of your game by doing so, and obviously in that situation it can be appealing to move towards the other side of the spectrum and be focused on all of the outside stuff. So I applaud you for that, and obviously it's paying dividends for you.
I appreciate that, man. It's tough because baseball's such a numbers game and such a results-based game, especially being a pitcher, a starting pitcher in the limelight. you're basically the quarterback on the days you pitch. So everything you do is going to be magnified and kind of analyzed to a T. So if you have a
For
good
both
day,
the good and the bad.
exactly, yeah. If you have a good day, people are going to applaud you and say such a great job. And on the other side of that, when you have a bad day, people will let you know about it. Which, I mean, that's just the way it is. And as an athlete, you just kind of live with that. But not getting too caught up in the good and bad. It's kind of staying even keel. Not getting too excited when maybe you throw a 7 shutout and you feel like you're on top of the world, and then the next outing you can't get out of the third inning and you're wondering, oh, what did I do this week to prepare that change? If I didn't change anything, then maybe it's just one of those days. But if I acted different that week, or I changed my preparation because I thought had it all figured out, then that's probably not the best way to go about it. But for me, it's just trying to stay consistent every week, learning from each start, especially at the big league level. The learning curve is a little different, especially coming straight from A ball to the big leagues. The adjustment it's definitely a little hump to get over at first, and I'm still not. I wouldn't say I'm still not to where I obviously want to be yet, but just trying to stay consistent with preparation each week and not thinking too hard into results and, oh, I had a good game, or maybe, oh, I let this pitch get away, but just focusing on the next pitch and the next outing and continue to, at the same time, wanting to be in the moment, but at the same time, I want to focus on what's next and what can I do to be better this next time or this next pitch or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Do you practice any sort of meditation, or do you have a go-to kind of ritual to kind of lock in, or do you just flip the switch and just go?
I'd say, honestly, it's more of the latter. I would consider myself a pretty insightful guy. I'm a thinker. So when I'm on the mound, I'm thinking a lot. But I mean, obviously that can help you, that can hurt you at times. So for me, I'm trying to not like space out, but I'm not trying to think about anything on the days that I pitch. So for me, it's pretty simple. I'm just listening to music. I used to be in high school and like early in college, I used to be like super hardo. I wanted to be super serious. No one talked to me. Blast my music on my headphones and just like freaking lock in. But now I've kind of learned that I want to be a little more calm, a little more even tempered. So I'll talk to people on days that I pitch, and then kind of maybe like 3 hours before, and I'll lock in, play some music. Well, where I get my confidence is more the routines that I have and just the preparation I have. It's not necessarily I'm doing anything meditation wise, although I'm definitely open to that stuff and eating exercise and whatnot. And I understand like the benefits are clearly there. But for me, I'm very comfortable in the routines I have, and I adjusted them obviously a little bit going to the big league level. But for me, that's where I find the confidence and the trust to go out and do what I can, because on the days you pitch, like you've already put in all the work in that you need to during the week, or you should have, and then once it comes time to pitch, then you just trust what you have and go out there and compete.
Yeah, I had a coach once. He was a sports psychologist, and he would always say the hay was in the barn. When it's time to when it's time to go, the hay's in the barn. The preparation's been done. Like, just trust what you got in the moment, and if you did it right, like, you're gonna put yourself in a position to succeed at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So I'm definitely following what you're saying. Have you seen any? You've been around baseball. You've been in the minors, and now spent time in the big leagues. Have you seen any just absurd rituals from guys? And you don't have to name names. Don't name any names, but just crazy stuff that, I mean, it must work for them maybe.
Nothing like super, super crazy, because like I said, it's been a short time. 'Cause even in professional baseball, it's been only 2 years. Some may think that's a long time, but I feel like it's somewhat short. But
Right.
I'd say overall, like, I'm a guy who prepares a lot, does a lot to get my body ready. There are some, like, you would think, like professional athletes, top-notch athletes, like in tune with everything. there are a good number of guys that are literally show and go. Hitters, like, I mean, obviously I'm not interacting with hitters, or at least in the cages, as much, because pitching,
Right.
pitchers don't really spend time with the hitters in that regard. But from a pitching standpoint, like, there are some guys that literally just pick up a ball and are fine throwing, and like, I don't know if I just psych myself out, but like, I feel like I need to warm up to throw. I can't throw to warm up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
there are some guys that literally, and I don't know if it's genetics or just they just have a really good feel of their body for that day. But for me, if I felt like I just picked up a ball and started throwing, like, I would regret, or maybe not regret that initially, but maybe a couple weeks later, maybe my arms start hanging or my body would feel really bad. So I don't, just the guys who do that, I commend them, but at the same time, sometimes I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Like, how do you just do that? Um, but I mean, to each their own. It's their own. It's your own career, and that's something
Right.
that's stressed a lot. Like, you can do what you want. You can do as much work as you want. You can do as little work as you want. Um, but when it comes time, you better be ready to go and get your body and get your mind in a good position to compete and perform at its best. So whatever that is, some guys do a lot, like myself. Some guys don't do anything, and like I said, to each their own.
Hey, if it works and if it's not broken, I guess you don't have to fix it.
True.
If you've gotten that far, you know, there's something to it. There's got to be.
Yeah, and I mean, if it works, it works. There are some things you just can't explain. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying guys like that don't have the work ethic. Um,
They just don't need it.
some guys just don't
Something.
need it. It's hard to explain. It's a lot of the time it's mental. Like, all of our routines and the preparation we do is so we can be in a good place mentally.
Hmm.
And maybe they just either don't have a routine or just are so confident in their abilities that they're fine to just get up and go. So it's hard to explain, but it is what it is.
Uh-huh. Are you into all the obviously baseball is turning more and more analytical every year,
Mhm.
but you see guys, Trevor Bauer, Mike Clevenger, you see those guys and they're on the I would say the top tier of the analytics game and trying to reinvent themselves and doing all these different things with Driveline and just crazy stuff. And obviously they're seeing results. Are you in with that stuff? And you, like you said, you're a thinker, and so this may appeal to you
Mhm.
and the scientific side of it. But are you more of just kind of let it be more of a feel thing?
Yeah, so a little bit of both, but so 2019, when I was in low A and high A, I kind of got exposed to the analytics a little bit. And I wouldn't say the Royals are a heavy, heavy analytics compared to some other organizations, which is totally fine. Um, but for
And
me,
there's
I kind of,
nothing wrong with it
yeah,
either.
there's nothing wrong with that at all. But we had a development coach, kind of like our video guy, essentially. He was kind of going, like, learning more about the analytics side of baseball himself, and then I would kind of piggyback off him and see what he was doing. And we had the Rapsodos out of our bullpens, the Edgertronic cameras and whatnot. Um, so, like, I just took a liking to kind of that type of stuff,
Hmm.
because for me, um, I'm a guy. I mean, pitching, I'm not throwing 100. I don't have nasty, nasty, like, breaking balls or anything like that. So I'm trying to get the most out of what I have.
Hmm.
And if I can use a tool or if I can use a camera to get the most out of what I have, then I'm going to use it. And, like, I feel like if I'm saying I'm trying to get better, that's something that I wouldn't shy away from, because I'm not saying you need to trust the numbers. Like, maybe I want a 3,000 RPM curveball, but if I can't throw for strikes, then I don't need a 3,000 RPM curveball. Like,
Right.
so it's kind of twofold. Like, in some parts it can help you, in some parts, if you can hurt you, it can hurt you. If you focus too much on it, then I feel like your mind's racing a little too much. You're not focusing on getting out. Because, like I said, in the game, I'm not thinking about spinning the heck out of a curveball or
You're
or
not checking the RPMs on your
no, I'm not
fastball.
checking
Yeah.
even my velo. I mean, sure, you'll take a peek at your velo here and there, just to kind of see where you're at for the day. But for the most in the game, you're not thinking about you're not thinking about that stuff. You're just trying to compete and get outs. But
Mm-hmm.
I will say on the side, like I said, I've taken a liking to analytics. I've actually read. There's a really good book, kind of diving into the whole new school. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called MVP Machine.
I have.
Um, yeah, I loved it. I read it last off season, um, and like I said, just my interest was sparked last year. I didn't because in college we didn't really have that stuff, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really get exposed to it at all. But last year I got exposed to it and taken a liking, and now I'm trying to understand how I can get my repertoire or my even mechanics to where I feel I'm in the best spot to succeed. Um, because, like I said, I'm not just a guy who can roll out of bed and throw 100 like it's nothing. I'm chilling at 91, 92 and just trying to miss bats or get weak
Mm-hmm.
contact here and there. So I'm trying to do all that I can to take advantage of my skill set as best as I can. Continue to do what I do well, and then obviously improve those weaknesses that I can round out my repertoire as best as I can. But to answer your question, I'm on board with all that stuff, with the analytics and kind of the number side of baseball. But I balance it out. I don't let it overcome me. I don't let it control my regimens or what I do or whatnot. So, but I definitely think there's a place for it in baseball, and I think, like you mentioned, those guys have completely bought in, and Bauer and Clevenger and guys like that. You're obviously seeing the results, so there's some merit. There's a lot of merit to it, in my opinion. But it's not just simple as, oh, if I just throw this weighted ball, I'm going to gain 5 miles an hour on my ball. Like people, it's the same thing. It goes back to the process because people think, oh, because maybe I shorten my arm action or I pick up this weighted ball or I start squatting 600 pounds, like I'm going to throw 99 miles an hour. Like it's not that simple.
Mm-mm.
Because a lot of that is you can do all that you want in practice, but if it doesn't translate to the game, like if you're lifting the house in the weight room as a hitter or a pitcher, but in the game as a hitter, if you have no power, or as a pitcher you're sitting at 84 miles an hour, like obviously something's not translating. So you
Right.
maybe reevaluate what you're doing. But sorry, a little long-winded. But to answer your question, yeah, I'm on board with it, and I'm a fan, so I'm open to analytics and getting better.
I feel like there. I wish colleges had more exposure to it. I think when I was playing and in school, like that would have been something that I think I could have bought into and would have just liked to know because there could be something that you're missing
Mm-hmm.
that you just can't see. You can't see on a video, you can't see with a radar gun behind, taking exit velo. Like you can only get so far with that, just I would call it primal technology in a way because there's no there's no data driven science behind it. It's just like taking a number at face value and that's what it is. And so I'm on board with what you're saying, kind of being 50-50. If there's a tool in the shed that can make you better, well, it'd be stupid to not use the tool, to some degree. I think exploiting it to a point where, like you said, that's all you're thinking about doesn't really help because if I'm trying to hit, like you said, there's no room for me to be thinking, but just trying to hit the baseball, see it and hit it. I mean, it's really pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to complicate it any further, but I feel like there is a level of analysis that can go into it that could just honestly, it could make everybody better if there's a large scale access. And I think you'll probably start seeing that more and more in the college game. Like we had the rap photos and stuff in school, but I mean, there's not much for the hitters.
Yeah, and like you said, like, it's interesting because like on a pitching standpoint, maybe I'm a little biased being a pitcher, but I feel like from an analytics standpoint, from the pitching side, there's a little more, maybe just as more metrics to kind of gauge a pitcher's success,
Mm-hmm.
hitter success. Um, because obviously with the hitter, the jargon that's thrown around is the exit velos and the launch angles. When I feel like I'm watching playoff games, I hear commentators just use it more like spin rates, and I'm like, dude, you're using that in such a bad context. You're not even correct in the way you're using it, and it's just like I feel like all that stuff is just popular to lingo to throw around just to make you feel like you're kind of understanding what's going on. But at the same time, like you mentioned, it goes back to I saw this somewhere, I don't know where, but I like the argument. It's like feel versus real. Um,
Mm-hmm.
being a pitcher, like maybe I feel like I'm staying behind my fastball pretty well, but maybe it's coming off my middle finger a lot earlier than it is my index finger, and maybe that's why I'm not getting the true backspin that I want, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So taking advantage of a camera or something to slow it down, and you can really see what's happening. Take a deep dive down on what's happening when the ball's coming out of your hand or whatever. That's the stuff I love about it. But like you said, there's always a balance in everything, baseball and life. So you just got to take what you need out of it, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. The feel versus real, I think, is super important.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way of putting it. And I've heard that statement thrown around, but um, it's it's funny how you think, like, as an athlete, you think you know your body,
Mm-hmm.
and you do, to far better than most people. And then you see it on video, or you see something and you're just like, what in the hell was that? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Or you feel something and you're just like, yep, that's it. You slow it down, you're like, that is definitely not it. I need to go reevaluate again. But it is a reality. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
reality.
Yeah, and it's so hard because just baseball as a whole is such a it's been taught to us as such a feel game. Like feel yourself getting out front, or feel yourself staying behind the ball, or feel your bat staying in the zone a long time. Well, in a sense, like what does that really mean? Like we we kind of take that for granted. We kind of just throw around a lot of phrases like that, but you never really take a deep dive into what that actually means and what that actually looks like from an individual standpoint. Because you may see some guy like hitters, Miguel Cabrera, for example, best
Hmm.
hitter arguably of our generation, perfect swing, and you're trying to model that, and maybe he talked about something you're trying to work on in a BP the next day or something, and like you're not getting the same results, and you're wondering why. Oh, I feel like I'm doing this, but you take video and add that into the equation, and maybe you're I don't know, you're not staying in the zone as long as you want. Obviously, Miguel Cabrera is kind of an extreme example because the guy's just a freak.
He's
But
talented.
but yeah, it's hard because there's a little bit. Sometimes it's important to have a coaching staff and like people that are bought into it as well, because if you have players that are on board but maybe coaches that are not as much on board, then there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and the player to coach relationship is pretty important in my opinion.
Hmm.
uh, so if both parties could get on the same page, um, then that's when you really see players start to maximize potential and really take off. Um, but like I said, it's a balance. It's tough because it's so attractive just to look at spin rate or spin efficiency or how hard you're throwing or how hard you're hitting the ball. Um, but take it take it for a grain of salt sometimes, and kind of just be a baseball player too.
Yeah, 100%. When you're talking about the feel thing, it it just made me realize that the feel is 100% relative to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could say feel this, and the guy could be like great, and he's that's what he's doing. He's feeling himself stay to his zone. And you feel the same thing to the guy next to him, and he's feeling something completely different. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where you get the analytic game and the video game, and that's where you can kind of mend the two, the feel versus the real, you know. Um, but you did say the sports commenters. You see those guys, not I'm not going to name names, but they're talking about it, and it's great that they're talking about it. But the launch angle swings and all that stuff. That's not what it is. And they talk about it every time I watch it. It'll come up at least once. And it pains me because they're, 5 game at home, probably more now with COVID. They can't go anywhere. So they're chilling at home and they're listening to these guys talk about the launch angle swing and all of these different metrics, but they're using them, like you said, in the wrong context. And it hurts me because the kids that are watching it they're not getting the proper information. And so when they go into the cage or go hit with their dad or, the little stuff,
Mm-hmm.
their perception of what is really happening is skewed based on that stuff. And I wish that would get fixed because it drives me nuts as a baseball guy. It's like, it just hurts.
I completely agree with you. Like there's such not that I mean, it essentially is false information, but a lot of the sports analysts and stuff you see, like they came up in a different time,
Mm-hmm.
when none of that stuff obviously was available or even talked about. So it kind of takes some accountability on their part to really dive into what analytics really says about
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um, you can see something thrown around, and that's often what it is. You're just throwing around lingo. But it goes back, what does that really mean? What does that really look like? Well, no one really takes the time to explain, especially on TV, because you're watching games and you're seeing uh, Mookie Betts hit a bomb or Tatis hit a bomb or something like that, and you're like,
Right.
oh, look at that, or even it's even worse when they swing and miss and they strike out so much. Well, strikeouts are maybe a product of pitchers being extremely nasty nowadays, or
Yeah.
I mean, hitters trying to do damage too, and like, oh, his 2-strike count, his swing is so big, or he's swinging up. Like, well, not really swinging up. You're swinging on plane with the baseball. So if you're swinging down,
Exactly.
your bat's in the zone for that long. If you're swinging on plane with the ball, your bat's in the zone 5 times as long. So it's just stuff that it doesn't really grind my gears a little bit, especially both of us just being involved in the game and being in the game. Like we understand the lingo, and then you watch a game on TV and it's just like, what are they talking about? And like you said, it trickles down to youth levels and kids kind of gaining the wrong idea or maybe creating bad habits right out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, hopefully can be fixed, but that's just kind of it just still goes back to just take the time to maybe do some research or like really understand or study the best hitters or study the best pitchers and see what they do well, and then you can kind of go down the little rabbit hole a little bit and see what you find on analytics, or if he has a really good fastball, or like why does he have such a good fastball? It goes, or if he has a really good swing, or if he has a really hard hit percentage, a really high hard hit percentage, why does he have a high hard hit percentage? Well, maybe because his bat stays in the zone really long. So that for like from a youth standpoint, that's what I would encourage. Just study your favorite players that do things really well, and go from there.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And if I were to tell somebody to study them, I would say study them on your own
Mm-hmm.
because you can take out, you get the Twitter sphere blowing up about hitting and pitching, and you got all this stuff, right? It's just all just information. It's just thrown out there. And it can be anybody nowadays. It can just be anybody throwing out any information, and somebody will like it, and they'll be like, "This is it," and it just could be complete BS.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's why I would encourage what I would call an independent study of some of your favorite players, or a guy's swing who you maybe are similar to, or similar body size, that sort of stuff. Like find those people, and there's files out there online that actually just have videos of like 1,000 hitters. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're out there. You just have to find them. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I would just to bounce off what you said. Like I think you just got to eliminate the BS and all the media stuff if you're trying to look for true information.
Yeah, you take ownership of. I mean, it's hard telling like a 10-year-old, oh, go study this hitter for hours or go study this pitcher for hours. But obviously, if baseball's like what you want to do and you want to find ways to get better, then like you said, you kind of got to search Google a little bit, see what you can find, and then I've had many a nights where I'm searching for comparable pitchers and I'm looking at, oh, maybe this is something I should try more, because this guy has pretty similar stuff to me, body types, whatever. So like you said, just I would encourage youth and whatnot, even big league guys still do